couple weeks after the PK crew got indicted, I went to have lunch at Mr. Beef, and Joe told me that these guys robbed his house in Park Ridge twice. Not once, but twice. He was 1,000% sure that they were behind it when the agent showed him photos of the little guy on Grand Avenue, asking if he knew him. He says, I know who he is, but I don't know him. They asked him again, do you know him? He says, I know who he is, but I don't know him. Joe was getting mad. Now, Joe used to use the word la vita a lot, which means the life in Italian. And this gentleman, he really lived the life, man. He enjoyed life. He loved Steely Dan, old classic movies. He had a passion for cars and food. This guy befriended all of his customers at Mr. Beef, making friends all over the country. Now, I say Joe was my friend, but he was everybody's friend. I went to his wake this past Saturday. There had to be easy over 150 people there. Joe was born February 21st, 1959. He had a wife, his brother Dominic, and 2 kids. No grandchildren, but he loved his pets. Joe was 69 years old. Now, Joe has poured his blood, sweat, and tears into this joint, Mr. Beef. He eventually bought the building, became a Chicago staple, and a nice little cash cow as well. Joe was offered several $1 million for the property, and he was just about to sell, but he told the architect, I want you to keep a little piece of the Mr. Beef remaining, and that kind of held up the negotiations. I used to love when Joe would tell me about all his old wise guy stories. He told me that Jackie Cerrone was a class act and was a real sharp dresser, one of the sharpest dressers he's ever seen. He said, though, you had to be on your P's and Q's with Jack because he was a bad drunk. And while you were having drinks with him, anything at all, the littlest thing, would set Jack Cerrone off. Joe spoke very highly of John No-Nos, and he didn't believe for 1 minute that he was an informant. He told me one night Joe and all his friends were out gambling, and they lost their ass. Late night that night, they met with DeFranzo. He loaned them some money. They went back. This time they gambled. They won big. The next day when they went to pay No-Nos his money back, John No-Nos didn't want any extra money or interest, but Joe loved No-Nos. One day I was behind the counter in the kitchen with Joe talking, and he told me one day Sally D came in there, sat down, had lunch, and Sally D asked him if he can get him a whole trailer, 53-foot truckload of roast beef. And, Joe he's like, Sal, nothing for nothing. You got over 22 successful pizzerias. Why the hell do you want to get in the Italian beef business? They started laughing. Joe told me the funny story where one day Jimmy Cozzo and Joey Lombardo and a couple of the Grand Avenue guys invited Joe on the boat. At first, he was a little reluctant to go. But when he went, the guys got so smashed that Joe was the only one sober enough to drive the boat. And he came within inches of smashing into one of those viaduct bridges, scaring the shit out of everybody. Now, one day after court, I went straight to Mr. Beef for an early dinner and was talking to Joe about the family secrets trial. He was blown away that I actually have the balls to go and sit in on some of these major trials. But he referred to the Calabrese brothers, the Calabrese families. He compared them to being just as evil as the Melendez brothers. Now here's Chris Zuccaro, Joe's son, good friend of mine. Love this guy. I used to tell Joe, I don't know who I love the most. Joe, the father, Mr. Beef, Chris, the son, or the beautiful daughter, Lauren. But that's what I meant. Not only did people go in there because they enjoyed the food, but most of us enjoyed the family that owned Mr. Beef. Now, the next time you're in Chicago and you want a nice Italian beef sandwich, Definitely go to Mr. Beef there in New Orleans and go say hi to my friend Chris. You'll love this guy. Back in the day, he used to carry a loaded pistol underneath the apron. Because of the close proximity to Cabrini Green, Mr. Beef was robbed a few times. And some of the homies that robbed him actually worked for Mr. Beef. Joe and Chris actually gave them jobs. But check it out when you get a chance. Now here's Joe's daughter, Lauren. Back in the day, you'd see Lauren working there late night. And I remember they told me a story that years ago when Lauren was a little girl, her father, Joe, he took her to see Frank Sinatra when Sinatra was in town. And Lauren gave Frank Sinatra a rose. I mean, how many people can say that? Another great story by Joe. Now here's Mancow. This guy was a pretty popular DJ not that long ago from San Francisco originally. I wasn't really a big fan of him, though, because, one, he talked shit about Princess Diana when she died. He also talked shit about Harry Carey when he died, a little disrespectful. But I know Mancow was a very good friend of Joe's. I seen Mancow at Mr. Beef in the dining area speaking to him, and I just recently see Mancow at Joe's funeral. Now, one of Jay Leno's favorite cities in the world is Chicago. And most of the time when he was in the city, he would always hook up with his good friend Joe. They'd go out to dinner. They would drive cars. And then when Joe was out in California, he would visit Jay Leno. And they would, drive race cars together. But Joe used to tell me all kinds of funny stories about Jay Leno and what tight friends they were. Here's two more of Joe's good friends. When these guys were in town one night, Joe took them out to dinner, but he took them way out to the suburbs, which they thought was way out there. They were wondering, why are we going so far away from downtown? Joe took them to a small little mom and pop hole-in-the-wall Italian restaurant in Elmwood Park. They were busting his balls saying, this better be good. You took us way out here, really giving it to him. It turned out to be the best Italian dinner Pesci and De Niro ever had. Now here's a little gem at Bruzzo's in Melrose Park, just down the street from Danny's Deli. This place is still open for lunch and dinner. Very reasonable price, delicious. This is the last place Tony Zizzo was seen alive. He's MIA since. Joe from Mr. Beef used to take Jay Leno, Joe Montaglia, De Niro, Pesci, and all his VIP friends to this restaurant when they were in town. Now, Joe created a really special ambiance at Mr. Beef. It's a place that would generate a lot of characters. Sometimes there was drama in there, especially at nighttime. But it was always an interesting experience to talk with Joe and his son, Chris. And here you got the fresh Italian beef, the hot and sweet peppers. Joe also made delicious Italian subs. But that's what made you keep coming back, was to see Joe and his son, Chris. Now, Joe and Chris, they built a really nice dining room at Mr. Beef where you could sit down, enjoy the sandwich, and relax. These long picnic tables. They got all the old black and white photos on the wall. They've got some mob guy photos as well. There he is talking to politician Dick Durbin. But Joe was very well connected, not only with some of the outfit guys, but with a lot of the cops, lawyers, and politicians. Now here's Mr. Beef doing what he does best. He did this for over 40 years. I can't even imagine how many pounds of beef this man has made. There he is in the kitchen, hand carving the nice roast beef there. You got the slicers in the back. Here he is on the right. He's got the Kingo hat on. You could see how handsome this man was. He's got the nice gloves on. The only thing missing is the cigarette. I used to like to break Joe's balls a little bit. I told him, bro, you missed your calling. He's like, what do you mean I missed my calling, Jimmy? I'm doing what I love. I'm blessed. I'm cooking. I said, no, you should have been an actor. Because to me, you look and act just like Al Pacino. If they needed a double, you're the man. Now, Joe, Mr. Beef, he was not an outfit guy, 100% legitimate businessman, but he was friends with a lot of the mob guys. Mr. Beef told me if any of the outfit guys came after him or anybody, he's got 3 letters for him. F FBI. He went on to say he's got the largest, boldest letters that say, "I don't give a fuck" on his forehead. One day, a couple agents came to his house. They started showing him photos of the little guy on Grand Avenue, asking him if Joe knew him. Joe says, "I know who he is, but I don't know him." They asked him again. Joe said, "I know who he is, but I don't know him." Aside from owning a very successful Italian beef stand, Joe also had other businesses, and he would actually help other restaurant owners. For example, Blackbird. Joe put up a lot of the money to help open up this high-end restaurant. I actually seen Depeche Mode here having dinner. They were dressed in all black. And then on the right there in Chicago Noble, you got Natalino. This is another Italian restaurant that Joe was part of. Now, believe it or not, some of my fondest memories, some of our greatest stories were in the kitchen at Mr. Beef. And we would be smoking cigarettes inside the kitchen. It was like I was in Richard's Bar or Las Vegas. I'll never forget it, though. All my time that I spent with him, Joe befriended you. He had a lot of friends. Anybody that was his customer became his friend. Now, no surprise, they're filming a movie here. This was today with Lip, the kid from Shameless, is filming that Netflix series, The Bear. They're actually filming it inside Mr. Beef. You can see they switched to signs. So it's nice. It gives the family a nice break. And I'm looking forward to Mr. Beef reopening. Can't wait to go in there and see Chris and Lauren. But yeah, as you can see, they're filming a movie here right outside. My condolences to Christopher, Lauren, your mom, and Joe's brother Dominic. We all know that Joe is 100% resting in heaven. He will definitely be missed. Mr. Beef will carry on. He built a good team, and hope everybody's doing well out there. Stay safe.